Star Wars has been a part of my life for as long as I can remember, so you can imagine my excitement when I found out that they were making a new Star Wars movie every year. And so far, The Last Jedi has been my favorite of the 3 films that they put out so far. Before I start with the actual review, there will be some spoilers, so you've been warned. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's begin. While I really liked the film, a lot of people seem to dislike it based on the fan score on Rotten Tomatoes, which is way off from the critics score. I seem to agree more with the critics than the audience. So, what did I like about the film? Well, for one, movies like this tend to be very predictable. Hell, even The Force Awakens was like that. But this movie surprised me so many times with the direction that it went, or how certain events took place. The film had me on the edge of my seat throughout the entire thing. There was rarely a slow moment, and when there was a slow moment, it still had a certain thrill to it. My favorite example of this is when Rey went into the dark hole on the island. It was beautifully shot and so well put together. They had most of the characters split up for the main bulk of the film, and had a brilliant way of having them all come together in one place for the finale. Each separate plotline had awesome action, incredible emotion, and great suspense. Finn and a new character named Rose's arc in the story was really cool, and it was really awesome to see the rich side of the galaxy, which hadn't really been done before. I think it was really interesting the way that they made you think the people on this planet made their money from selling weapons to the First Order, but later we find out that they sold to the Rebellion as well, blurring the line between the light and dark, a theme that has been in the Star Wars saga since the beginning, and continues to pop up in every film. They did a lot with the Force in this one, and expanded on what the Force is capable of. The prime examples being Kylo and Rey actually being able to touch each other, rather than just feel each other's presence while on opposite sides of the galaxy. And also the way Luke uses the Force at the end to appear somewhere he wasn't. At first I was a little confused as to why he had the classic lightsaber that was originally Anakin's, because it was destroyed moments before that, but then it all made sense. He wasn't really there. Every single one of the characters were handled really well, and expanded on their story in the saga. Rey finally learns about her parentage, which has been a huge topic of conversation for the past 2 years since The Force Awakens came out. When she realizes they were nobody, she can finally leave her need to find out who they were, and not let it hold her back from her true destiny any longer. She now knows that her parents were nobody, and Kylo Ren even tells her that she doesn't belong in this story, which Luke proves otherwise, when he says that he isn't the last Jedi, and that Rey is actually the driving force of this story. I also really love the way that they dropped the name of the title there too.
Oh boy, I usually only get this excited when they say the title of a movie in the movie.
I will not be the last Jedi.
He said it! He said it!
Luke faces his demons, and we learned what happened when Kylo Ren overthrew Luke's Jedi training facility. They took Luke down a much darker path than I expected, which I wasn't quite sure of at first, but when they revealed the events that took place years earlier, it's easy to see why he's gone down this dark path.
I've seen this raw strength only once before. It didn't scare me enough then. It does now.
They gave Luke an incredible ending to his character arc, not only saving the rebellion single-handed, but also facing his nephew for the first time since that fateful night. It was really emotional for me to see him disappear into the Force, just like Obi-Wan and Yoda did, because we started our journey with him 40 years earlier, and to finally see his journey come to an end was both sad but also quite satisfying. I also loved both his reunion with Leia and his reaction to learning about Han's death. It links the original 3 that we all know and love. Poe learns a lot about war and sacrifice during his interactions with the new Admiral. He goes from being a reckless, arrogant pilot to learning about the true essence of what it means to be a hero. His actions kill hundreds of people in the beginning of the film when he sends the bombing squad in, while the new Admiral does the complete opposite and saves hundreds of people by giving her own life. It really teaches Poe a lot about who he is and who he wants to strive to be. Also, the sound editing when the ship goes into light speed through the First Order ship was so well done. It was silent for a few seconds, making you hold your breath, and then boom. It was like the Death Star explosion, but even more thrilling and suspenseful. Kylo Ren's character arc was by far my favorite. Adam Driver's performance was amazing as usual. You never know what he's thinking or what he's going to do. He has so much conflict in him, even more than his grandfather did. I like what they're doing with his character and how he's sort of the backwards Anakin. Anakin started off good and became bad, while Ben started out bad and became good. Well, kind of. My prediction for the end of these films is that he'll end up redeeming himself, but we'll see. For me, Ben Solo is by far the most appealing part of these films, which is really saying something, because there's so many appealing elements ever since Disney took over. One thing that bothers me though is Ben Solo's name. They took his name from the old canon. Luke's son's name was Ben Skywalker. It's cool that they're taking from the old canon because those stories were great. But why would Han and Leia name their son after Ben Kenobi? Han hated the guy and disagreed with everything he said.
Where did you dig up that old fossil?
Leave that to me.
Damn Fool, I knew that you were gonna say that. There's no mystical energy field controls my destiny. It's all a lot of simple tricks and nonsense.
And Leia didn't even meet him other than when she was a baby just born, which she obviously wouldn't remember. And then she only saw him die from afar. She had no personal attachment to him other than knowing that he and her father fought together during the Clone Wars. It makes sense that Luke would name his son after Ben Kenobi because he had a huge impact on his life, but it just doesn't fit for Han and Leia to name their son that. But anyway, the relationship between Ben and Rey was incredible, and it's clear that they truly have an amazing connection. The scene where they touch hands while connected through the Force was a really powerful scene, and seeing them fight together was so cool. I think that the way that they ended the relationship at the end of this film was incredible. The way Rey shuts the Falcon door, cutting Ben off both physically and emotionally through the Force. I love the original Jedi text that they showed in the films, and it's crazy to think how old these books are, because for thousands of years they had holograms, holocrons, and all sorts of digital technology to store their information. So those books date back so long ago. These are the only text on paper documents that I can think of in the entire saga, and I think that it's really cool that they incorporated them in there. It was also really awesome to see the destruction of them. And speaking of that, there were so many awesome treats and Easter eggs for Star Wars fans. The biggest for me probably being Yoda, who destroyed the original Jedi text, and topped it off with a hilarious line saying, "Page turners, they were not." I really like that they went with a puppet for Yoda. He looks almost exactly how he did in the original trilogy, rather than the CGI version of him in the prequels. The appearance of the original hologram message from Leia gave me chills.
This is our most desperate hour. Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
Another cool Easter egg was the scene where Luke and Leia call out to one another through the Force, just like in Empire Strikes Back.
Leia.
Also an Easter egg of Finn saying that he was rebel scum, a line straight from Return of the Jedi.
You rebel scum.
I also noticed many parallels to the original films, which The Force Awakens was very heavy on as well. There's the battle on the ground surrounded by something white. In Empire Strikes Back, it was walkers versus rebels in the snow, and in The Last Jedi, it was walkers versus the rebels on salt. There's the very obvious parallel of the hero leaving the group to train with an old master who had isolated themselves on a hard-to-find planet. There's the similarity to having the big reveal of parentage. It takes place in the second film of the trilogy. In Empire, Vader revealed that he was Luke's father. Here, Rey learns from Kylo the truth about her parents. And my favorite parallel, the Dark Apprentice brings the hero to their master, who is in a throne. They then watch the hero get tortured, which leads them to killing their master to redeem themselves. Well, in this case, redeeming themselves for a second before going back to his old ways and becoming the new supreme leader. Now, some things I didn't like about the movie. My biggest complaint is how they handled Rose and Finn's relationship. It was so unnecessary to have them kiss and to fall in love. They hyped up Finn and Rey's relationship so much both in The Force Awakens and at the beginning of this film, and then they just throw all this nonsense in. I wish they could have just had Finn and Rose be close friends who bonded over their mission together. I also wish that they had done more with Captain Phasma and not just killed her off the way that they did, although her fight with Finn was pretty epic. The film was also very long, but don't get me wrong, I didn't want it to end, but there were multiple points in the film where I thought that they were going to wrap it up, but didn't. Another thing that I don't like was the scene where they had Leia out in space. She was literally blown up. There's no way she could have survived the way that she did, even with the help of the Force. I honestly thought that they had killed her off right then and there, which I was half expecting for the entire film. The unfortunate passing of Carrie Fisher will definitely change what their original plans were, because I know that they said that she was going to be the driving force for Ben Solo's final crossroads in a struggle of light and dark. I have no idea what they're going to do with their character for episode 9. I know a lot of people hated the CGI Leia and Tarkin in Rogue One, but I actually really liked it, and I thought it added a lot to the movie. I'm kind of hoping that they do the same sort of thing for episode 9 to make sure that they give Leia a good send-off, which I feel now is inevitable. But judging by the amount of hate they got for doing that in Rogue One, they might not go down that route. I also hope they have Luke come back as a Force ghost in the next film. I think it would be really cool and would put his Jedi mastery up on the same scale as Obi-Wan and Yoda. He could come back and give Rey advice just as Obi-Wan came back and gave Luke advice. Overall, this film was really enjoyable for me and is honestly ranked in the top 3 best Star Wars films of all time in my opinion. It continued the story, gave each character more development, and introduced new characters that were all very appealing and interacted very well with the already existing cast. Thanks for watching, guys. I know this is a little different than the videos I normally make, so let me know if you guys like it or not, or if you want to see more Star Wars videos. I'd also love to hear your guys' thoughts on the film. Tell me if you agree or disagree with anything I said, and again, thanks so much for watching.